Hey everyone, FlyingDutchy and welcome back to another guide video. This time we are going to talk about markets and trading. At the start of the game, the world is divided by trade centers. Let's go to the markets map mode. And you can see the current trade centers there are in Europe at the moment. At the moment I have one under my control because I own Stockholm. And you can see that some parts of my realm are not in my own market. For example, these locations are in the Riga market. Every location is selling their goods to their represented market in the location. The 3 clay that I make in Stockholm is getting sold into the market of Stockholm. And the same counts for all the other locations. And together, with everything that the location produces, will be what is available in the market over here. If I hover over the Stockholm market, then you can see how many pops there are, the market value total. The next topic will be food, because that is very difficult to understand, so stay tuned for the next guide video. We need to talk about that. You can see the greatest surpluses of the market. You see that we have a huge amount of fish. And no, fish is not food in this game. Stay tuned for the next episode. And here you can see the things we need the most. You see that most of our stuff is already fulfilled, because if we only need 1 beeswax and a little bit of rice, sugar and sturdy grains and fur as the maximum, then we are well saturated in this market. We can also see that we have the highest profit, the highest trade capacity. We are using 34 out of our 34 trade capacity in this market. And that we have the highest trade advantage. We have 129 and the Hanseatic League is second with 3. That means that in a ratio to these two, we are allowed to trade first. So I think, just an example, if there is 1,000 fish we are trading, then I have 99% of the fish, I think, when I do the calculation, and the Hanseatic League can trade 1% fish. But if the Hanseatic League had 70 trade advantage, or 65, then they can trade 33% fish, and I 66. That is I think how it works. So you want to keep this number even higher all the time, because being first doesn't guarantee 100% of the goods. It's a ratio. Now, with that out of the way, let's just see what determines which location joins which trade center or which market. For example, I own Shundeo over here, but they are part of the Riga market. Why are they part of the Riga market? Well, when you're in the markets map mode and you hover over it, you can see that over here. They are going to Riga. They have 68.75% market access. That is the distance that it is away from a market center. And it can also be influenced by roads. And I think also by maritime presence, but I cannot find evidence for this. What is the Stockholm one? Stockholm is only 51. That's very low. The Stockholm market is very far away for this location. And since there are no roads to Stockholm, and there is no good port, I think, they decide, hey, we are going to go to Riga, because we have 76.9% and not 70.6% to my market over here. Now, there are bonuses for market attraction. If you have your market center in a well-developed and a location with a lot of buildings, you get extra attraction for the market. We are the owner, we have some prestige, we make a good amount of trade versus normal income. The value of our trade is a big amount of our total tax base. And we have a privilege, market attraction. But that helps to attract locations to your market, even if the market access is a little bit lower. And they look at the language. We are Scandinavians, Finnish are also Scandinavians. And that is why they are attracted more to Stockholm than Riga, because they can use the same language. Now, and then you see a whole thing over here, and that determines which location is going to join which market. Also, the further you are away from a market center, you get penalties for the production. So for example, Stockholm is my market center, so all the buildings in Stockholm are able to have the highest production. So if I go to a building, for example my tannery over here, then we see that we create 1.03 tannery. Why? Well, normally it's 1. We have full access to the input goods, we have everything available in our country. And we have full market access because we are in the market center, so we have a normal output. If I go to a town further away, here, the town of Söderköping, and let's go to our Tailors Guild over here, then you see that we are having a lower output. We are having normally 0.5, we have access to all the input goods, but hey, we only have 82% market access here because it's further away, so we are scaled with 0.8. So we are losing 0.1 cloth, thanks to the market center to be far away. Now you want to keep this in check, and sometimes you could think, hey, I need another market, because I want to have some locations to have easier access. For example, here in Åbo, we only have 70%. That is a waste. We have so many buildings over here, well, not that many, but we have some buildings over here, and these buildings are having all these penalties. So then you could decide, hey, I'm gonna make a new market. And you can click on the market symbol, or not. Oh, a right number. And then you can create a market in the location you are in. You can also go to the economy tab, market, and then click on create market. And you can only create markets in a town. I mean, I could create a market somewhere over here, but I don't think I have any town here, so I wonder why I can actually do this. But that's very interesting. But you want to build a market in a bustling location, because the more buildings you have there and the more development, the more attraction that market gets as well. So, for example, in my country over here, I own all of this in Finland, right? And this part is going to Riga market. So if I would build something over here, more livestock, then that livestock goes to another market. So why would I do that, right? So you want to try to get your locations in your own market and make sure that not all the locations are super far away, because that would give a lot of penalties to the access of the market, and that lowers just the output of everything. Now let's take a look at the modifiers we have at the moment in my Sweden game. We go to economy and markets, and here you can see that we have a bonus from our burghers because they are happy, which we talked about in the last episode. And that gives us a higher percentage of trade advantage. You get trade advantage by building markets and other buildings. And the higher the advantage, as I said, the more a ratio of the goods will go to you. Other nations can be in your market. And you can also embargo them, but just try to outcompete them with a huge amount of markets and stuff and get higher trade advantage. As later in the game you get trade maintenance modifiers. We have an extra trade capacity bonus, so for every trade capacity we make, mostly markets again, we get 20% extra. We have a good market attraction. We have a little bit of prestige. We make a lot of trade income from our total base tax, so the total money we make is a lot of trade. And we have a privilege for our burghers, allow trade center sponsorship. It makes it easier to get the locations that are close to you in your market. There's also market protection value, so that you do it the other way around. So if someone wants to take locations from you, there's also a protection value, and there is a trade range. And this goes per market. So if I have a market here and I have a market in India, then the market in India can only trade with markets that are in the range from that one. And my market in Stockholm can only trade with other trade markets that are in this range of 1200. And there will be later advances and modifiers that change this. So yeah, once again, what I would do in my run is to have another market later in the game here when I have colonized this region. And I will create maybe a market somewhere over here, most likely coastal, and make that a big town with a lot of buildings so that it gets more market attraction. And that way I can steal maybe the RGO resources from Novgorod and the Livonian Order. Because I will have good attraction, I have good modifiers. And that way I'm somewhat stealing their RGO outputs. I'm gonna steal 1 fish, 1 sturdy grain, bit of stone, etc, etc. So you want to also take a look at the RGO map mode and then look for things. Hey, can I steal something maybe from other countries? Oh, there's some marble over here. That's interesting. Maybe I want that. Pearls? I need beeswax in my market. When you go to your outliner here, you can hover over the markets where you have any trade going, so where you have an impact. And at the moment, in the Stockholm market, we need some books and we need beeswax. Beeswax is used for markets, for example. Not saying it over here, I think, no, but most likely the markets. And then when you hover over it in this map mode, wait, you see it highlighting on the map. Do you see it? But there's some beeswax in the south here. There, and there. So if I build a market here, maybe I can steal that for myself. That would be cool, right? But what is happening then? It will go to this market and not in the Stockholm market. Then we have to maybe trade it between the markets. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. Every market can trade with their goods to other markets. So let's take a look at the... Well, we looked at this market screen. We can see in a quick overview where I have trade capacity or not. Most of the time you only have trade capacity where you own locations, but there are buildings in the game where you can build foreign trade capacity with a trade office. I can build a trade office in a town around London, creating me some trade advantages. It's a tiny amount, but some burgers will work for that building. And then you have access to the markets for just a tiny bit. So most of the time you have the highest trade advantage and trade capacity in your own markets, where all your locations are in, and where the enemy is having very few locations. And for us that is at the moment only the Stockholm market. Now, I will click on this market, and then quickly you can see all the supply and demand in the markets. For example, we make a huge amount of fish. We are only using 1.8. Once again, fish is not food. We'll talk about that in the next episode. And we have a surplus of 39.8. So you would think, hey, maybe we should export our fish, because we have such a low price. Our fish price is going to 0.16, while the base price normally is 1. And that is because of the effective supply and effective demand. Your effective supply and your effective demand determine the price of the good. Trading has a very small impact on these two numbers. If I would export 40 fish to someone, I won't because it's not profitable, but if I would do that, then you would think that I have a 41 supply and a 41 demand. And yes, you will, but the price of fish will stay low, because the export of fish is not counted in as the effective supply and demand. I will have to export 120 fish or something, and then the price will go back to 1. So trading is a very easy way of making money, because the goods are not one-on-one to the price. So if you have a surplus, you can trade more away than your surplus before the price goes to the base price. So that is different to Victoria Free. And that was really difficult to find out when I got access to EU5, but that is how it works. And yeah, you can take a look in this screen and say, hey, I have a lot of surplus of lumber, of fish, I have a lot of wild game. Maybe we should trade those away. Well, let's go back to the economy screen and take a look at the trading screen over here. You see, I have it automated. But I have it not completely automated. You can make trades and you can pin them and you can lock them so that they won't go away. This is risky as you are a beginner of a player, because sometimes what you lock in will suddenly disappear or is no longer available. For example, I am at the moment importing silver and gold from Prague market. And at the moment I can. I'm using 4.66 of my trade capacity, to import 2.8 silver. But at some point, maybe other nations have a higher trade advantage than me, and then I cannot take that trade anymore. I cannot, if I make this to 20, then there is a chance that the game says, well, you cannot get 20, but other countries are above you and they are trading. So you have to pick something else. And if you do this manually, there is a chance that you are using your trade capacity for nothing. So you need to keep an eye out for these things all the time. But let's just cancel all my trades. Right click everything. And then at the start of the game, you have that as well. And then you can see, what do I want to trade? I have 34 trade capacity in my Stockholm market. And there are always some suggested trades for profit. Once again, there is one trade route from Prague to Stockholm over here. And it gives me 3 ducats per trade capacity. Now that's pretty good. And why is that? Well, let's hover over the silver symbol. Prague is having a huge amount of silver. They make 55 from their silver mines and they are only using 24 right now. So there is 30 sitting idle. The price is low because they have a very high effective supply. They make a lot in their country. And you see here that the effective demand is only 18. But here it shows 25. The whole trade export, as I said, is 25. But it doesn't impact the price that much. It's only 18. So trade doesn't impact one-on-one on the demand of silver. That is why you can trade a lot of it. You can trade a lot of silver away before it reaches the base price of 8. So this is now a very decent trade route for us to do. And then I can say, hey, let's do 10 trade capacity of these, and let's also do 10 with the gold. And then based on all kinds of modifiers, it determines how much goods you trade per trade capacity. Distance is a big one. The further it is away, the more trade capacity you need to use per good amount. So that is something you have to look at as well. You can see here distance is 1.6. So that is hurting a bit. But it's still good because this number is calculated with those penalties. So, and there is also a trade route maintenance, etc. So you can do it like this. And you can see, hey, there's our fish. So we have 41 fish, and in Krakow they have negative fish. So I would make 1.4 ducats per trade capacity if I export my fish to Krakow. I could do this, but I don't have to. Why would I use 1 trade capacity to make 1.4 gold per trade capacity if I can make 3? It's all about the money. I want to make as much money from trading. So what you can do is just take a look at this suggested trade for this list over here and then click them in. That's 1. Let's get 10 gold. There. 10 and 10. And then I say to the rest of the trade capacity, so I have assigned 20, I have 14.4 left. I say, well, the game can do this automatically. And the game will also take into account what my population needs. We need fur. We have 5.4 and we need 5.8. So some of my nobles and burghers will get a little bit annoyed. And then the game itself will try to fulfill these trades. But once again, it's only giving 1.1 gold per trade capacity. I want to make more money per trade capacity, so that my markets who generate trade capacity are giving me the most buck per trade capacity. That's just what you want. And the game is really good at finding trades for profit, but it's not that great of distributing all your trade capacity in such a way that you maximize your income. I will show this by letting the game run for 1 month. And then you will see that hopefully, I'm also in a war, so hopefully nothing will happen there, that we can actually get the silver and gold. Because we are doing this manually. Let's find out. And we can. How do I know? because we are getting 6.1 out of 6.1. So apparently we have, or they have enough gold left that we can take it even if we don't have any trade advantage in their market. So that's good. Because if I go to the Prague market, we are not in this list. Bohemia is having the highest advantage, and then the Duchy, and then Olesnica, and then Moravia, and there's the Hanseatic League again. That is a non-nation country you can play, which is new in EU5. You can also find the markets if you go to the markets screen and you click on the Prague market. Oh, I'm here already. And then you click on countries. Then you can see all the countries that have at least some sort of trade capacity or trade advantage. And we are not in this list, so if some of these countries want to do something else with the gold and the silver, then they go first and then our trade stops. But at the moment we can. And you can see that the game is now deciding, hey, well, we also need some dice and it's giving a little bit of income. Let's assign 5 trade capacity to this trade. But why would I like 0.8 ducats and not 2.6? So that is what you can do as the player. You can just right click this away and say, well, that's not giving me enough money. I can maybe do this better, the fish 1.4, or I just go back to my suggested trade for profits. And I am gonna get some dice from Riga to my market. But this is also a thing. It's saying this number is 3.08 per trade capacity, but I can only trade 0.36. There is not enough extra of dice in the Riga market. So I cannot get even 1 trade capacity. So this number looks nice, but I will not get this, because there is not enough dice. So you also need to take a look at these things. You need to take a look at the number. Well, it's a high number, that's good. But I cannot increase it. I cannot get more than 1. So most likely that is not giving me that much. So what you should do is maybe just look at the things that are going well and increase that number. Let's give them like 12 extra. And I'm gonna cancel this one away and I'm gonna go and give them a little bit more. Here, let's go to 15 trade capacity for both. It's gonna give me way more income. Right now my trade income is 23.9. So once again, you don't get all the trade, you get a trade percentage based on your crown power. We have... oh, and scroll up. I get 33.6% from the trade income. Thanks to my decent crown power. It's actually pretty good at the start of the game. So that is what is happening. So if I go another month... This is a long video, but the topic is also more difficult. So let's just say, let's take a look what happens next month. Can I trade this? Or is there not enough left for me? Oh, I can. We can. We are having 9.15 out of 9.15. So we are not blocked by the other nations that have more trade advantage in Prague. So very nice. And you see that my trade income now is 31. The game itself is now actually exporting the gold from my market to Lübeck, giving 2.35. But why would I export gold out of my market if I can get more by importing from Prague? So no, I don't want this. I'm gonna cancel this a little bit, and I'm gonna increase it in this one. That's gonna make me a little bit more money. That's what you can do. Now, how can you specialize trade? Let's talk about that as the last part of this video. It depends on your RGOs and the buildings you build. For example, as Sweden, we don't have that many very important things. We might have some iron over here. Maybe you can upgrade your iron and then make tools from it. Tools are used for a lot of things. If I click on iron over here, you can see that the base price of iron is 3, which is not high, but it's okay-ish. You can get iron from the RGO. That is what I'm looking at, the RGO good in every location. Or you build a iron smelter. But that is a very weak building. And then we can use the iron for tools and for market villages. Later on you can use iron for cannons, gunsmiths, tools, iron foundry, and all the other buildings, the steel mill. And hey, maybe we can make steel. Maybe we can become a big producer of steel and export that to the rest of the world. It all depends on what the other markets need. But if I control markets on my own, for example I annex Norway, and I have a Finnish market, and I have a Danish market, then maybe I can make one thing in one market, for example steel in Sweden. Then I export the steel to Denmark and make an industry in Denmark that needs steel, and refine the steel in something else. And then that trade route will be very profitable. That is how you can maybe play around with specializing the markets, but you can only do that later in the game. At the start of the game you don't have to worry about that at all, because it's just too difficult. If I go to the English market or the London market, they have a huge amount of wool. So if you play as England, maybe you want to make wool into cloth and make cloth into fine cloth. And maybe some markets in the world would like to get your fine cloth. The higher the base price of a good, the easier it is to make money with. Wool is having 2.5, and that is 2.5 per trade capacity, that is low. Silver is 8, and gold is 10 per trade capacity, so it is way easier to make money with gold and silver at the start of the game. That is also why, most likely in your game, you're gonna try to do this as well. Hopefully you have access to the gold and silver from the Prague market. But it's gonna be difficult. Sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't. Now, I think that is enough talking about trading, how it works, how it is profitable, how markets work, that you don't want your markets to be too big because they will be too far away. For example, over here, this location is having, even 0%. Yeah, look at this. So if I build something over here, it's not gonna make anything because there is no market access over here. I can make a new market maybe in this region as well, or I will build roads and maybe a dock with good maritime presence so that I spread the market access to this region. Okay, that was a long video, but it's a very important topic. I hope I explained it well. Let me know in the comment section, like the video, subscribe, maybe become a YouTube member. You will see that in the end screen. And for now, thank you for watching, and I see you in the next one where we talk about food. Bye bye.